Hi everyone, you're welcome to my channel. Thank you all so much for stopping right here on my space today. I really do appreciate, and it's a big privilege for you all to stop today on my channel. So in today's tutorial, without wasting much time, I'll be sharing with you all how I made this beautiful crop bust shirt you see right here with a notched collar. So in the making of this shirt, you shouldn't use less than 1.5 yards of fabric, and also please do consider subscribing to my channel. So without wasting much time, I'll just get started with today's tutorial. So guys, the fabric I used in the making of this shirt is a Duchess fabric, but I wasn't given the main Duchess, but I later realized that this wasn't the main Duchess fabric. But anyways, it still gave me what I want. It was beautiful. So I went ahead to cut out this fabric, which would be enough for the drafting of the front part of this my top. So you can see that I already went ahead to mark a line across at the top of my fabric, and that is going to be my shoulder line. And from the edge of the folded part of my fabric, I went ahead to mark 1 inch. So this 1 inch I'm marking from the top to the base of this fabric right here is going to be for my button allowance. So after marking all of these lines, I'll connect it into a straight line. So I'm going to start by marking my shoulder divided into 2, and I'll add extra 1 inch. So right here, my shoulder divided into 2 is 14 inches, divided by 2 is 7 inches, plus 1 inch, which is 8 inches, which I marked right there. And from that point I marked my shoulder. I'm going to come down by 2 inches. And also I'm going to also mark my neck width. So the neck width I'm marking here is 2.5 inches, and the neck depth is 2.5 inches. So please, if you watch closely, you notice that I'm marking all of this from the line I marked from the fold of my paper of my fabric. Okay, I'm not starting from the edge, but from that line right there, you see. So I went ahead now to connect all of this together and also give this my round neck line. So after that, I'm going to connect from that 2 inches which I marked right there to my neck width. Yeah, exactly on the point where I marked my 2.5 inches for my neck width. So you can see I went ahead to connect this right here, and then this is for my shoulder slanting or my shoulder slope, and 2 inches is usually given as long as you're drafting for a shirt. So from that point I went ahead to mark 7 inches for my armhole length. Normally I mark 8 inches, but because this is a shirt, I don't want this excess bulginess around my armhole area, because the armhole size do increase most of the times. So I went ahead to mark 7 inches instead of 8 inches. Okay, so I'm going to divide what I have under my armhole into 2 equal halves. I got the half of it and I made a point right there, and from that point I marked ½ inch inward, just like this. So now under my chest line, on that line right there, I'm going to mark my bust circumference divided by 4, which is 9 inches, and I'm going ahead to add 1.5 inches extra, which is going to serve as my stitching or my sewing allowance. So using my curve rule, I'm just going to connect these to create an armhole curve. So guys, you can see what I have right here. So the next thing I'm going to go ahead to do is to input all my other measurements. So I'm going to start from the shoulder line, not from the slanted line. Okay, so the length of the top I'm working with is 17 inches, and I'm going to add 2 inches extra, which is going to serve as my hemming my hemming allowance actually. So I went ahead to mark that, and the next thing I'll simply go ahead now to do is to extend that line, which is that last line I marked right there, which is for my hemming allowance. So I'm going to measure what I have on my chest line, and whatever it is I have right there on my chest line, I'm going to mark it on my waistline, but I'm going to subtract 1 inch from it, okay, because I don't want it too big on the waist area. So I'll just subtract 1 inch, as you can see I did right there. Subtracted 1 inch and marked whatever I had right there, and I'm going to connect these 2 points together, and that will be all for the drafting of the front part of this shirt actually. So the next thing I'll go ahead now to do is to cut out. I'll cut out the base, I'll cut out the sides, the armhole, the shoulder, and also the neckline area. So what I'll simply do is that when I come to that button allowance, I'm going to notch that line right there so that it is going to serve as my guide while drafting for the back. So now I got another piece of fabric which is going to be enough to draft the back part of this my shirt. So all I'm firstly going to do is to take in this 1 inch for my button allowance. I'm going to take it in and now place it directly on this other fabric I just brought here for the drafting of my back shirt. I hope you understand what I mean right here. So you can see that at the top area I left some space at the top area. So this space is going to be from that part. I'm going to mark about 2 inches. So the back shirt is usually longer or higher than that of the front. Okay, so that's the essence of these 2 inches which I marked right here, and I went ahead to extend it into a straight line. So having done this, now the next thing I'm simply going to do is to mark my neck width of 2.5 inches, and I'll make a point right there. So from that 2 inches, from that line, I'm going to mark 2 inches because this also needs a shoulder slanting or a shoulder slope. So I'll go ahead now and connect it up to my neck width of 2.5 inches, which I marked right there, and you can see it very clearly right there. So that is simply all I did, and the next thing I'm going to do now is to cut this out. I'm going to cut out exactly this way it is, just for the upper part alone. I'm not going to touch the sides yet. After cutting this out, you can see what I have right here. So the next thing I'm going to do is to fold this, making sure that the end of this back dress I'm trying to draft touches the shoulder of the front shirt. Okay, just like this, and I'll make a mark at the neck width and also make a mark at the other side. This other part I'm also trying to fold, so you fold and make sure that the back touches the shoulder of the front, and from there you just create your neckline for your back, and that will just simply be it. And guys, trust me that we are done for the drafting of the back of this shirt. So go ahead and cut out every other thing the same way you drafted. So after cutting all of this out right here, now I'm going to separate this into 2, and I'll get the front part of this my shirt, and I'm just going to open up the button allowance part. So I'm going to separate these 2 to give me 2 fronts. Okay, so it's going to be 2 fronts. So this is actually what I mean right here. I'll keep this aside, and I'm going to get my back shirts, and I'll go ahead to trim off that neckline a bit to give it a perfect and nicer shape. So right sides facing each other, I'm going to join this on my shoulder area, just the way you see me doing right here. So do not bother that the back part is longer, because at the end of the day, after joining at the shoulder by 1/2 inch, this is what you're going to have, because you have the back part of your shirt coming a bit forward. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do now is to get another piece of fabric. I'm going to make sure I cut this fabric to have a better shape, and what I'm simply going to do is to get my shirt that I've already joined at the shoulder. I'm going to get the front part and fold it into 2, and I'll place it right on this fabric which I already cut out. So I'm going to trace this out on the neckline area and stop exactly on this joining I have on my shoulder. So guys, please pay proper attention right here so you don't get confused on the explanation I'm giving right here. So I'm going to cut this and stop exactly on the joint I have on my shoulder. That's under my shoulder, the joints I have. So from there, I'm going to cut it out entirely. I'm going to cut everything out, just as you see me do right here. So after that, the next thing I'm going to do now is to trim this off a bit, and from the edge of this piece of fabric I have, I'm going to mark about 3 inches. So right here, you can start to mark about more than 3 inches, but I marked 3 inches. So I'm going to mark this, but when I'm getting a bit to the top area, I'm going to mark about 4 inches to 4.5 inches. Okay, so after this, now I'm going to cut this out exactly the same way it is, and also separate this piece so that it gives me 2 pieces. Okay, so guys, I've separated these, and this is what I mean, and the explanation I've been trying to give right here. This is what yours should look like as well. And the next thing I'm going to do now is to start joining this to my shirt. So for that other end, I'll just go ahead and hem it, but before I hem, I went ahead to stitch this together on my shirt. Okay, so I'm going to get my shirt, the front part to be precise, and I'm going to place this right side facing the neckline area. So you're going to place this right side, making sure that the neckline aligns just like this, and I'm going to sew all the way from the top to the base of this shirt. So I did it for the two parts of this, and also top stitched on my shirt and not this piece right here. So the next I'm going to do now is to hem the rough edge of this piece I joined to my shirt. So just watch closely and see how I hem this. So I'm going to spread this out open like this. I'll get my hemming gum and I'm going to place it just like this and fold in exactly this way. So this is how you do it from the beginning to the end or the base of this shirt. So I'm going to do all of this quickly, and I'll also come back and show you all exactly what I have after hemming for the two sides of this my shirt. Okay, you know, it's now into two because of the division. So this is what I have after hemming, and you can see I already have a neat finishing right here. So the next thing I'm going to do now is that from the notched part, you know, the parts where I notched was that button allowance, I'm going to mark about 2.5 of an inch, and I'm making a point right there. So I'm going to bring this shirt together to get the midpoint of this, and as well also notch the 2.5 inches where I notched. Okay, so you're going to make sure that this aligns properly both on the shoulder and every other part. Okay, so from that point where I marked my chalk, I'm going to just notch this a little. Okay, so after notching that, now I'm going to measure all the way from the notched part to the middle of this my shirt at that neckline area. So right there I have 5.5 of an inch. So the next thing I'm going to do is to draft out a collar with this 5.9 inch measurement I have, and please don't forget that it is on fold, meaning that by the time I open it up, I'm going to have 11 inches. So here's the piece I have. I folded it first from the top and also folded it again from the sides. So I'm going to make sure that everything aligns, and once I'm done with that, from the folded edge I'm going to mark 5.5 inches, and I'll add extra 1/2 of an inch, which is going to serve as my stitching allowance. So from that other end I mark 3.5 inches, and on this other side I'm going to mark 2.5 inches. So all this 1/2 inch I added to this is to serve as my stitching allowance. So the next I'll use this my ruler to create a bit curve like this and join the 3.5 inches to this 2.5 inches. So after drafting this, I'll just go ahead and cut out exactly the same way which I already drafted. So you're just going to follow each step I show you right here carefully, and by the time you open this up, you notice that it is a bit curved at the middle. So the next I'm going to iron an interfacing to this, and I made use of an S-stay to be precise. So this S-stay, like I've always said on this my channel, you iron the rough part of your S-stay to your fabric, right, the rough part facing your fabric, and it's going to stick automatically with your iron. So that was all I did here. Now go ahead now and trim off all these excesses on the sides of this my fabric. So after trimming out this, guys, you can see that I faced this the wrong side, and I'm going to stitch both sides in just 1/2 of an inch. So I stitched this down and also went ahead to flip it to the right side and iron this flat as well. So I folded this into two to get the midpoint. I'm going to notch that part you see right there. So I'm going to get my shirt, and what I'm going to simply do is to get that middle part of my shirt, that's the center part of my shirt, on my neckline, which I didn't notch actually. So I'm going to notch it right here so everything properly aligns. So I get the middle of my neckline or my shirt, and I'm going ahead now to notch this. So after notching this, I'm going to place this right side facing the camera, and I'm also going to get the notched part on this my collar, right side facing my shirt as well. I'm going to pin this as well. So after pinning that, I'll also go ahead to pin and make sure I stop exactly on that point where I notched. Okay, so you can remember the last notch I made before I went ahead to draft out my collar. So that's the point where exactly I'll stop. So when I stop there, I'm going to use this piece I added to my shirt. This piece you see right there, I'm going to turn it backward like this, making sure that the right side is facing this collar side, and I'm going to kind of use it to cover my collar. But before that, I'm going to mark about half of an inch at the top part of that my collar. I'm going to mark half of an inch just as you see me do right here, and I'm going to make a little notch on that point. So please just watch closely, because this part is the very important and vital part. So I'll notch this, and by the time I pin that piece to this my collar, I'm going to raise the upper part of that my collar and also pin this piece on my collar. So even if my explanation is not too very clear, but I believe that everything I'm doing right here is very clear and understandable. So I'll pin this, and also when I get to that point where I notched, I will take one part of that collar up. As you can see, I'm trying to show you right here. I'll take it up and also pin this piece on this one part of this collar, just like this. So by the time I'm done doing all of that, I'll just go ahead and stitch using just half of an inch. So I'll also repeat the same thing for the other side of my collar, and by the time I'll finish all of this, I'll just use half of an inch to stitch all through from one end to the other end of my collar. So after doing this, now I flip this to the right side, and this is exactly what I have. If you have to repeat the same thing I did right here, this is definitely what you two also get. So the next thing I'm going to do is to bring it out at the pointy edges, and also I'm going to fold in these remnants I have right here. So at that point, exactly where this piece stopped, I'm going to notch just like this. I hope everything is very clear right here on this video. I'm 100% certain and sure about that. So I'm going to notch it to ensure that this goes in freely. So by the time this goes in, what I'm going to do is that I'm going to fold in half of an inch and stitch. So this is exactly the explanation I was trying to give right here. So you can see that by the time you notch, everything is going to go inside. So that was why I brought this camera closer. So by the time you've done this, just go on ahead now to stitch using half of an inch, which is the half of an inch which I added while I was cutting out my collar, if you can still remember. So this is me trying to give more explanation on how you should fold that in. So after I've gone ahead to do that, guys, this is what I have. You can see how neat and perfect this is looking. So that was all I did for this shirt. And also join the sides. I used them about 3/4 of an inch to join the both sides of the shirt. And I also hemmed the piece to my shirt using my hemming gum, just like I showed you earlier while I was doing that of the other side. Okay, so guys, that was all I did. And the next thing is to draft out this sleeve. I already have a tutorial on how to draft a very short shirt sleeve, so if you're interested in that, I'll be linking it up in the comment section. And here is my end result, guys. So trust me, this is very simple to do, and this is very perfect. And I also went ahead to be a bit extra by adding this to the side of my sleeve. So guys, this is the beautiful outcome, and also I fixed my button to this. So thank you all so much for watching, and if you've come this far watching and you're yet to subscribe, I wonder what you're still waiting for. Subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you on my next one. Bye.